while stuck in a loveless marriage. I began a secret affair with my husband's charming boss until his suspicious wife walked into our lunch date and everything unraveled. Before starting the story, where in the world are you watching from? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear. Let's just say no one saw that ending coming. Still remember the taste of the pasta, garlic, tomato, basil, Norma, safe. But everything else about that lunch was anything but. His hand brushed mine under the table. A glance passed between us like a current. I was married, he was married. Worse, he was my husband's boss. We had sworn this was the last time that we'd stop before it got too complicated. But there we were again, stealing time and touches between conference calls. He leaned in to say something when I saw her. A woman in a fitted black dress, red nails, tapping her phone, eyes sweeping the restaurant. My stomach dropped. His wife? She hadn't seen us yet, but I knew, some part of me knew, that we weren't walking out of that place unchanged. I dropped my fork. He looked at me like I was imagining things. I wasn't. Her eyes finally locked with mine, and a slow, cold smile formed on her lips. She walked straight toward us. Before all this, I would have told you I was a loyal wife. I cooked dinner, remembered anniversaries, smiled through dull weekends. But over time, my marriage faded into something mechanical. My husband, Daniel, wasn't cruel, just absent, like he'd married me and then slowly forgotten why. We lived in the same house but spoke like co-workers at a water cooler, efficient, polite, hollow. I told myself this was normal, that love changed with time, but I was starving for something real, something that saw me. Then came him, Adrian, Daniel's boss. Confident, sharp-witted, effortlessly charismatic. He noticed when I changed my hair, laughed at my jokes, asked questions Daniel hadn't in years. I tried to ignore the chemistry at first, but every look lingered too long. Every conversation pulled me in deeper. I felt seen, desired, alive, and that craving, it became dangerous. I wasn't looking to betray anyone. I was just desperate to feel like I mattered again. It was at Daniel's company gala, a sea of navy suits and dry speeches. I stood beside my husband, wearing a dress I bought just to feel worth noticing, but he didn't even glance at me. Then Adrian walked in. He didn't speak to me at first, just nodded politely, then disappeared into a crowd of shareholders. But something about him, the way he held himself, the way others leaned in when he spoke, caught my attention. Later, that night, I went to the bar alone, and there he was. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," he said, smiling. I laughed before I could stop myself. We talked for 5 minutes, then 15. Daniel never noticed I was gone, and when Adrian touched my elbow in goodbye, something electric jolted through me. I told myself it was nothing, that I'd never see him like that again, but I did. And next time, he wasn't so polite. The affair didn't start with a kiss. It started with coffee. Adrian began asking me questions about Daniel's preferences, work stress, how he could better support him. But those meetings veered quickly off topic. He joked about corporate nonsense, asked what I liked to read, whether I was happy. It became weekly, then daily. I'd visit the office under the excuse of dropping something off. We'd talk for 10 minutes, then 30. His eyes lingered longer. My excuses became lazier. I knew the rules. Never mix hearts and power. But I didn't care. Not when he looked at me like I was more than just someone's wife. One day, in the back hallway near the service elevator, I bumped into him, literally. I dropped my purse, papers flew, he bent to help, and when our hands touched, he didn't pull away. Neither did I that day. He texted me, "Lunch tomorrow, just us." I said yes. That was the beginning of the end. It was a Tuesday. Rain tapped against the window as I stared at Adrian's message. Same place, same time, missed you. My heart raced like it always did when his name lit up my screen. I told Daniel I was meeting an old friend from college. He grunted, barely looking up from his laptop. I should have felt guilty, but I didn't, not yet. At lunch, Adrian looked tired. "My wife's been watching me lately," he said, half joking. "She thinks I'm cheating." I froze, fork midair. He smiled, but there was tension behind it. "She's just paranoid," he added quickly. "But maybe we should be careful." That word careful rang in my ears the rest of the day. We were already lying, already sneaking. I asked him if he wanted to stop. His answer, "I want you, just not like this forever." Something in me believed him, until the day his wife walked into that restaurant. and I realized just how much I didn't know, that Adrian and I built a routine out of risk. Always at the same corner bistro. Always noon. Always sitting in the back. Two outsiders. We could been discussing spreadsheets, but under the table, our knees would touch, fingers brushing over coffee cups. I'd laugh at his sarcastic comments about company politics. He'd lean in close when I talked about books or art. It felt like we were in our own secret movie, and we were the leads. He called it our bubble. In those stolen hours, I wasn't Daniel's neglected Wi-Fi, was someone worth chasing. And he wasn't just a boss, he was the man I imagined a different life with. He once joked about Paris, said we should meet there one day. I laughed, but something in me wanted to say yes. Then one day, I caught a reflection in the glass behind him, a woman, watching. She vanished before I could get a good look, but I felt the hairs rise on my neck. The bubble was thinning and someone was watching us from the outside. I'd come home from those lunches and pretend I was fine. I'd help Daniel with his tie, cook him dinner, nod as he talked about supply chain budgets, but inside, I was splitting in two. Sometimes, I'd stare at myself in the mirror and barely recognize the woman staring back. I hated lying, but I also hated how invisible I'd become in my own marriage. Adrian filled the hole I didn't know I had. Was it wrong? Absolutely, but it felt real, and I clung to that like a lifeline. Still, the guilt had teeth. I'd wake up from dreams where Daniel found out, and I'd see his face twist into something I'd never seen before. Hurt. Not anger, just hurt. The worst part. Even in those dreams, I didn't stop. I wanted both, comfort and fire. But the longer it went on, the more I knew that kind of life couldn't last. And I wasn't the only one lying. Adrian had his own secrets, and I was about to find out just how deep they went. When Daniel got the call about his promotion, he hugged me like it was the best day of his life. Adrian said I earned it. He beamed. My heart twisted. Adrian, the man who just days ago had kissed me in a parking garage, now toasted champagne with my husband at our dinner table. Two new beginnings, Adrian said, raising his glass. His wife, Victoria, sat beside him, graceful, elegant, her eyes scanning me too carefully. I forced a smile, but my hands shook under the table. That night, watching Daniel sleep beside me, I realized I was the rope between two men, one who didn't see me at all, and one who saw too much. But something else nagged at me. Why did Adrian push for Daniel's promotion now? Was it guilt or leverage? The next day, Adrian sent me flowers anonymously. Of course, inside was a note. You deserve better. We both do. It should have thrilled me. Instead, it terrified me. Because what if I didn't deserve better? What if I deserved the storm that was coming? I tried to end it. More than once, I'd type out long texts. This isn't right. We have to stop. I can't keep lying. But I'd delete them every time. Adrian had a pull I couldn't explain. With him, I felt seen. And seen was addicting. I told myself it was love. Maybe it was. Or maybe it was just escape. He said he was falling for me. That he hadn't touched his wife in months. That he saw a future with me. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe I wasn't just a distraction from his own broken marriage. But I never asked too many questions. That way, I didn't have to know the answers. And still, that day at the cafe, when Victoria showed up, I felt it. The storm. The reckoning. He had told me she didn't suspect anything. That they barely spoke. But the way she stared at me across that table, she knew. And she wasn't just there to watch. She came with a plan. It happened in slow motion. Victoria approached like a queen surveying a battlefield. She didn't scream, didn't cry, just slid into the seat beside Adrian, crossed her legs, and set her purse on the table with practiced calm. What a coincidence, she said, eyes locked on me. You're the one who plans Daniel's birthday parties, right? My heart thudded. Adrian stammered something about business meetings, but she ignored him. Her gaze never left mine. Do you like Italian food? She asked. I nodded slowly. She smiled, cool, calculated. Me too, especially when it's not ruined by lies. Silence. Then she turned to Adrian. Your phone's been buzzing all night. Guess I had to see what was worth ignoring your own wife for. She reached into her purse, pulled out a phone. His phone hand set it on the table. Unlocked, open, to our messages. Every word, every photo, every lie. And with a final glance, she whispered, Bon appétit, and walked away. Adrian didn't move. Neither did I. The truth had just detonated. and we were both standing in the fallout. The silence after Victoria left was deafening. Adrian stared at the phone like it might bite him. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. All I could see were those messages, our messages now, a weapon in the hands of a woman who clearly knew how to use them. She went through my phone. Adrian finally muttered, like that was the crime, not the cheating, not the lies, just privacy violated. What happens now? I asked, my voice hollow. He looked at me, and for the first time, I didn't see the charming, confident man I fell for. I saw a cornered animal. She won't tell Daniel, he said. She won't ruin me. Me, not us. Not you, me. That's when something inside me cracked. I realized I wasn't his escape. I was his liability. A beautiful mess he could regret later. But regret wouldn't undo the damage. And suddenly, I wasn't sure who I had betrayed more, Daniel or myself. That night, I went home to Daniel like I always did. The lights were on, dinner was made, but he didn't come to the door. He sat at the table, scrolling his phone with a strange stillness. I stood frozen in the hallway. My mind raced. Did she tell him? Was this the moment everything collapsed? I walked in, heart pounding, and sat across from him. "You're home late," he said, eyes still on his screen. "Yeah, traffic was horrible." I lied. He looked up slowly, really looked. "You've been acting strange," he said. "Is everything okay?" My throat tightened. This man, who had barely noticed my emotional starvation for months, was now asking the question I'd dreaded. But his eyes weren't angry, just confused. Like someone realizing the door had been open the whole time, and only now wondering where it led. I wanted to tell him everything, but I just said, "I'm tired." He nodded, almost sadly. He knew, maybe not the whole truth, but enough to feel the distance I could no longer hide. Victoria called me 3 days later. I didn't even know she had my number. Her voice was calmly calm. "Let's meet. 1 hour, same place." I nearly didn't go, but curiosity and guilt dragged me there. She was already seated when I arrived. A glass of red wine, immaculate makeup. She looked like she'd just stepped off a movie set. "You think I came here to destroy you?" she said. But I didn't. I stayed silent, unsure what game she was playing. "Adrian cheats. Often, you're not the first. You won't be the last." My heart sank. I'd told myself our affair was different, real, but now I saw it through her as a repeat performance. "So why did you out us?" I asked. She leaned in. "Because you're married to someone decent. Someone who doesn't deserve this. And I figured you'd never leave unless you were shelved." I swallowed the truth like poison. She was right. She hadn't come to ruin me. She came to wake me up. And it worked. Victoria didn't care about me. Not really. I was just a symptom of a much deeper rot. She wanted Adrian to feel fear, to feel watched. "He thinks he can keep using women like chess pieces," she said. "So I made him play defense for once." She didn't cry, didn't lash out. She simply explained that her silence had cost him more than rage ever could. "His board members know. Not about you specifically. But enough." My stomach flipped. His career, that was the currency she dealt in. Not revenge through scandal but through reputation, power, perception. She stood up, smoothed her dress, and said, "You should leave him, before you lose yourself completely." Then she walked away. No scene, no threats, just truth. I sat there long after she left, picking at the remnants of my food, wondering how I had become the cautionary tale in someone else's story. And, for the first time, I didn't feel like the woman in the middle. I felt like the one left behind. But later that week, I met Adrian one final time. I needed answers, closure, something. He looked worn, older even. "She told you," he said. "Most of it." I asked him why he chose me. His face softened. "Because you listened. Because you looked at me like I was more than just a paycheck." "But I wasn't the first," I said quietly. He didn't deny it, just nodded. "Victoria and we haven't been married in any real sense for years. We're partners, on paper. Public image, mutual benefit." My stomach twisted. That line, mutual benefits, sounded more like a business merger than a marriage. "So what was I?" I asked. He didn't answer. That told me everything. I stood up. "I was never yours. I was just your favorite escape." He reached for me, but I stepped back. It wasn't anger. I felt it was grief. Grief for the version of me that thought this was love. As I walked away, I knew this wasn't just the end of us. It was the beginning of something else, something I would have to build on my own. I waited 3 days before telling Daniel, not because I wanted to spare myself, but because I needed to say it right. He deserved that much. We sat on the couch, the same one we used to laugh on during movie nights. I told him everything. The affair, the lunches, the moment it all collapsed. He didn't interrupt. He didn't shout. He just sat there, frozen, like someone watching a slow-motion car crash. When I finished, I couldn't even look at him. But then he spoke. "Why didn't you tell me you were unhappy?" My heart cracked open. I'd been waiting for rage. What I got was heartbreak. "Because I didn't know how," I whispered. We sat in silence. The space between us had never felt wider. Finally, he stood up, walked to the door, and said, "I need time." I nodded. And just like that, the man I once promised forever to, walked out. No drama, no screaming, just quiet devastation. And somehow, that hurt more than anything. The days after Daniel left, blurred together. I stayed in the house alone, his toothbrush still in the cup, his jacket on the hook. I couldn't bring myself to move them. I answered no calls, avoided Adrian's texts. I didn't want to be rescued. I wanted to feel every ounce of the wreckage I had helped cause. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was punishment. Every clink of the spoon, every creak of the floorboards reminded me of what I'd broken. People think cheating is about passion, or lust, or selfishness. Sometimes it's about being starved for connection, but that doesn't make it right. I had become a stranger to myself, chasing validation, mistaking desire for love. I wasn't just mourning the end of my marriage. I was mourning the woman I used to be, the one who believed in loyalty, in honesty, in building something instead of burning it down. And in that silence, I finally realized something. If I ever wanted to be whole again, I had to rebuild from the ashes. Alone, it took time, weeks, then months. But slowly, I found pieces of myself I thought I'd lost. Started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. The colors calmed me, gave me something to say when words failed. I found a part-time job at a small gallery downtown. Nothing glamorous, but it was mine. Mine to build, mine to reclaim. Adrian tried reaching out again. I never replied. Not because I hated him, but because I didn't recognize the person I had become with him. And Daniel, he stayed away, respectfully. One day, I sent him a message. "I'm healing. I hope you are too." He replied with just one line. "I'm glad you're finding your way." That was enough. I didn't need a reunion. I didn't need another man to hold me up. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I felt capable. Maybe that was my hidden talent all along, surviving, and not just surviving. Becoming. 6 months later, I received an unexpected envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a simple card, an invitation to a corporate gala. Daniel's new company. He'd moved on, professionally, grown, thrived. At the bottom, a handwritten note, no expectations, just come as yourself. I stared at it for hours, then I bought a new dress, one that I loved. When I walked in that night, heads turned, not because I was with anyone, but because I wasn't hiding. Daniel saw me from across the room. He smiled, no tension, just peace. We spoke for 10 minutes, laughed, even no apologies were exchanged. We didn't need them. Closure doesn't always come in grand speeches. Sometimes, it's in the quiet acknowledgement that you both survived something painful, and still chose growth. That night, I danced, alone. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a scandal. I felt like a woman who knew her worth. Looking back, I don't tell this story to justify my mistakes. I tell it because sometimes we live asleep waiting for someone else to shake us awake. For me, it was a woman in red nails and a knowing smile. It was a marriage gone hollow. A man I thought was a savior who turned out to be a mirror. And, ultimately, it was me. I was the one who let my life become background noise. I was the one who betrayed, then rebuilt. I'm not proud of everything, but I'm proud of this. I didn't let the worst part of my story define the rest of it. I let it teach me. If you've ever felt invisible, or lost, or like you've made the kind of mistake that erases all your goodness, hear me, it doesn't. You're not broken beyond repair. You're just ready to rewrite. And if this story finds you in that in-between place, take it from me. Truth hurts, but it also heals. You just have to be brave enough to face it. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice might help someone else find theirs. And if you believe in second chances, hit like and subscribe for more true to life stories that don't shy away from the hard truths.